Welcome to Lifelong Learning on ReachMD. We are broadcasting from the Alliance for Continuing Education in the Health Professions at their annual meeting, and we're in Washington, D.C. Joining me today is Ryan Mazon. He's Vice President of Business Development at Educational Measures, and we're going to talk about big data and data in education. Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So give us kind of the big picture here. What are we talking about in terms of big data in education?
Well, learning these days is actually changing a little bit from the didactic sessions that we're all used to. So the technologies that are being involved with meetings these days are actually bringing a lot more data to the industry. So we're finding that the more data that we're collecting is giving us more avenues to be able to adjust the education as we go.
Interesting. So you must be seeing some interesting outcomes at this point that have changed over the years.
We do, and it used to be technology was pretty good for the job, where you would do audience response or something like that to gain like a pre-test and give the learning and then post-test after that. The technologies that are really being used today are really changing everything that they're doing. So it gives just a little bit more to what everyone can do with their meeting.
Describe that a little bit. What type of technologies are you referring to?
Educational Measures actually provides iPads for these meetings, and these iPads are a learning interactive tool. So what they're really designed for is to have the learners interact with the presentation. It's still the presentation that they're presenting, but it's also being streamed to their iPad, so they're able to interact with the slides as they go. By doing that, it's actually giving each slide an impact scale. So if people are able to save them or take notes or ask questions, all of that information is now becoming data for the educational providers, which is really changing the way that they're doing things.
So two questions on that. One, the first is, I imagine that is changing the construct of the education itself, that the educationalists are having to redesign how they develop education.
They are, and that is one of the really good points and really good reasons for using that technology, any type of technology. By the impact that people are showing on the slides in the presentation, each slide actually has an impact on its own now. So they can look at each slide and see that maybe in the first 5 slides there wasn't a lot of interaction using these tools, but something happened at that 5th slide that really made it impactful. Maybe it was a new therapy, maybe it was a new way of doing things. And the educational providers are now looking at that saying, well, we really got a good impact on this slide. We got a lot of good interaction. Maybe next time that needs to be, instead of 1 slide, maybe 3 slides. Or if it's really that impactful, that could even become a whole session on its own. So a lot of these things have never really been grabbed before, really been observed in learning, because learning has always been a didactic session where we're presenting our material. This is what we're going to be doing, and this is how it was. Please evaluate how it went. Well, now we can actually, the technologies that are available in 2016 are allowing for real-time analysis of what's going on in your meeting.
That was kind of my second question related to that, was what are you seeing in the outcomes that are changing? How is that different today from just a handful of years ago?
Pre and post test has always been the standard. It's still a good measure of learning in a meeting room, but how the content is changing from meeting to meeting based on the results that we're capturing in an iPad setting is making the education a little bit more. We don't have any data on what the outcome maybe a 6-week follow-up outcome would be, or retention of the knowledge, but just following in just regular standard knowledge of different types of learning styles, knowing that by using some type of interactive technology, they're actually being able to use different types of learning systems. So if it's audible or visual or actually interacting with the presentation, those things have always been proven to show retention of learning.
Right, and clinicians are such data-driven folks anyway.
Yes.
They must like this. They must embrace this.
They do, and even when we brought out our iPads at the beginning, there was some hesitation. Nobody wants to learn something new. Nobody wants to really have to push this on attendees or learners and really impact it and take away from what they're trying to present. But that should speak to the technology that you use, because the technology that you should be using should be easy for your attendees. That way they are not overbeared by the technology. If it's easy to use, if it makes it easy for them to interact, that'll give just good data points. That's going to make it easy to collect data. That data goes back into the content design and knowledge gap. So it really should be part of everything that people are doing these days.
Yeah, it sounds very valuable. What are some cool technologies you think we'll see on the horizon, say 5 years out?
People ask me that a lot, and I think that 5 years ago there was no iPads meetings. It was keypads, and even 5 years before that it was wired keypads that took 10 hours to run wires all across the floor. Audience response technology is gaining. We've looked into the Google Glasses and even the iPhones or wearable technology. There is places for those, especially in the conference setting. As far as learning session, I think for right now, the iPad seems to be the standard for learning. I'm sure it could be something new. Maybe I have seen on the frontier these like 3D imaging tools that they could put on the middle of a table, have that pop up, and people could discuss that around that. But I think we're still a little bit far away, and that should be soon, hopefully.
And the key, obviously, is just keeping everybody engaged. That seems to be.
It is. And, it's not as easy as just putting out a technology and saying, okay, here we go. This is going to, get our learning going. We've learned just from day one that you've really got to get the buy-in from the attendee. The attendee's got to know that they're going to want to interact with this tool. Our device actually has a login screen. So when we first started, we would put out our iPad and it would have an email address, and we realized, an attendee will come in, they will sit down, they'll look at this, and the first thing the thing is asking is for personal information. So a lot of people wouldn't log in, so they wouldn't use the information. And what we decided, and we found out fairly quickly, is that we go up in front of the audience, give a 30-second speech on, this is what you're going to get. You are going to be able to save slides. You are going to be able to interact. You are going to be able to ask questions. You're going to become part of this program. We found that the interactions from those attendees, they almost sat up a little bit in their chairs. Yeah. So because they are now going to become part of this program.
Right.
And it just stimulates the whole conversation that they're doing. And really, even the educators might not always anticipate where the conversation is going to go, but I think that should be really part of it. It should have some flexibility to allow for new thoughts and new ideas, and that's really what education is.
Well, we really appreciate you sharing your information with us. Tell us where people can get a little more information about this.
You can go to www.educationalmeasures.com, and you can see all of our information, and we're collecting a lot of data right now, and we can show you the best way to use it.
Very nice. Well, ReachMD, as you know, we say be part of the knowledge. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Great. You've been watching Lifelong Learning on ReachMD. We're broadcasting from the Alliance for Continuing Education in the Health Professions in Washington, D.C. at the annual conference. For more information, please visit reachmd.com. Thanks for joining us.